Stay, gentle listener, stay. Don't be alarmed. There's nothing here to distress you. This is a place of amusement. Come closer. Look, there are bullies pushing about, bucks ogling the women, knaves picking pockets, policemen on the lookout, quacks bawling in front of the booths. Don't you recognize the place? Why, this is Vanity Fair. Not a moral place, certainly, nor yet a merry one, but most intensely interesting.
Stage 47, Item 8. Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackeray. Adapted for radio by John Bethune. Starring Barbara Kelly as Becky Sharp and Lorne Greene as narrator. Produced and directed by Andrew Allen, with an original musical score composed and conducted by Lucio Agostini. Thackeray's Vanity Fair.
This is a story without a hero. A story set in a vain and wicked and foolish place, full of humbug and pretension and falseness and deceit. Let us open our tinsel box, amiable listener, and set our puppets dancing. We must go back to a sunshiny morning in June, when the late century was still in its early teens. Here in the front drawing room of Miss Pinkerton's Academy for Young Ladies on London's Chiswick Mall, an austere and majestic lady is engaged in writing a letter.
And a careful and undeviating use of the backboard for 4 hours daily during the next 3 years is recommended for the acquirement of that dignified deportment and carriage so requisite for every young lady of fashion. In leaving the Mall, Miss Amelia carries with her the hearts of her companions and the affectionate regards of her mistress, who has the honor to subscribe herself, madam, your most obliged humble servant, Barbara Pinkerton. P.S. Miss Becky Sharp accompanies Miss Amelia. It is particularly requested that Miss Sharp's stay in Russell Square may not exceed 10 days. The family of distinction with whom she is to be engaged as governess for the future desire to avail themselves of her services as soon as possible. Come in. What is it, Miss Jemima?
Mrs. Sedley's coach is here, sister.
So, have you completed all the necessary preparations incident to Miss Amelia's departure?
Oh, yes, sister. And I've put up 2 bottles of the gilliflower
And
water.
I trust, Miss Jemima, that you've made a copy of Miss Amelia's account.
Oh, yes, sister, I have it here.
Let me see. 99 pounds, 4 shillings, yes. Be kind enough to address it to John Sedley, Esquire, in Russell Square. And seal this billet which I've written to his lady. Where is Miss Amelia at the moment?
I believe she's still upstairs, sister. Shall I fetch her to say goodbye?
Yes, at once.
And Miss Becky, too?
Miss Becky?
Oh, yes, sister. She's to leave with Miss Amelia.
I'm quite aware of that fact, Miss Jemima.
Well, don't you wish to say... Oh, there she is in the hall. Becky Sharp.
Don't shout, Miss Jemima.
Becky, come in and say goodbye to Miss Pinkerton.
Must I?
Why, Becky.
All right, I suppose I must.
Really, Becky?
Well, Miss Sharp?
Mademoiselle, je viens vous faire mes adieux.
I
said, je viens vous faire mes adieux.
Miss Sharp, I wish you good morning.
And I wish you good morning.
Well, I never...
How dare she? How dare she?
Oh, dear. I fear Becky Sharp would dare almost anything, sister.
And to think I received her out of charity. Well, thank goodness we've seen the last of her.
And so farewell to Chiswick Mall. And thank God, Amelia, I've seen the last of it.
Why, Becky Sharp, how can you say such a thing?
I wish it were at the bottom of the Thames with Miss Pinkerton in it.
Becky, hush.
I've had nothing but insults and outrage from that horrid old crow for 2 whole years. I've been treated worse than any servant in the kitchen, just because I was a charity student. I've been made to tend the little girls in the lower schoolroom and talk French with all the misses. Still, I must say it was capital fun talking French to Miss Pinkerton. You should have seen her face when I said goodbye. She doesn't understand a word of French and was too proud to confess it. Vive la France! Vive l'Empereur! Vive Bonaparte!
Oh, Becky, for shame. I do hope you won't say Vive Bonaparte in front of Papa.
Oh, Amelia, you're so lucky.
Lucky?
Yes, to have a papa. A nice, rich, affectionate papa. who gives you anything you ask. My poor papa could never give me anything. I had but 2 frocks in all the world when he died.
Oh, Becky.
It must be wonderful to have parents. And to have a brother, too. Tell me about your brother, Amelia. Is he very handsome?
Well, no, not exactly. Joss is really too stout to be handsome, but he wears beautiful waistcoats and Hessian boots.
I delight in Hessian boots. Is he very rich? They say all Indian nabobs are enormously rich.
He has a very large income, I believe.
And his wife, is she a nice, pretty woman?
But Joss isn't married.
He isn't? Then surely he's engaged.
Oh, goodness, no. Joss has always been very shy with ladies. He lived quite alone in his collectorship in India.
He's quite young, isn't he, Amelia?
Oh, no. Joss is nearly 30.
But that's quite young. Why, that's only 10 years older than me. Do you think Joss will like me?
Why, of course, silly. I'm only afraid you won't like him.
Oh, but I shall. I'm sure I shall.
And as the Sedleys' family coach rolled on toward Russell Square, Becky's assurance grew more emphatic than ever. Indeed, by the time they reached Kensington Turnpike, she had quite made up her mind. We shall find Joss Sedley in the library some 2 hours after Becky and Amelia arrived at Russell Square, a very stout and puffy young man in an apple green coat with steel buttons. He's reading a newspaper by the fire.
And this is the library where Papa...
Hello, who's that? Good guess.
It's only your sister, Joss. I've come home from Miss Pinkerton's to stay. And this is my friend, Miss Sharp, whom you've heard me mention.
No, never, upon my word. That is devilish cold weather, Miss...
I've just been showing Miss Sharp the cashmere shawls you bought me from India.
Yes, of course.
Aren't they splendid, Becky?
Beautiful.
I'm afraid I can't make you such handsome presents, Joss, but while I was at school, I embroidered a very fine pair of braces.
Gad, what do you mean? I say, I must see if my buggy is at the door. If you'll excuse me.
Joss, you're not leaving, surely.
Hello. What's the trouble here?
Oh, Papa, Joss is leaving. And I was so hoping he'd stay for dinner.
Well, of course he'll stay.
But I promised to dine with Quentin of our service, sir.
Why, you told your mother you'd be dining here. She's prepared a special curry for
But
you.
in this dress, it's impossible.
Nonsense, Miss Sharp. I leave it to you. Isn't he handsome enough to dine anywhere?
Indeed, yes.
Yes, I warrant you never saw a bed of buckskins like those at Miss Pinkerton's, eh?
Gracious heavens, Father.
Then I've hurt his feelings. Amelia, my dear, I've hurt your brother's feelings.
Really, Father, I say...
Come, sir. Where are your manners? Be friends with Miss Sharp and escort her down to dinner. That's it, Miss Sharp. You take his arm. Get him to tell you one of his tiger hunting stories. Come along, Amelia.
Within a very short time of Becky's arrival at Russell Square, it became plainly evident that she was setting her cap at Joss. How demurely she smiled at the portly gentleman. How artfully she flattered him. How thrilled she was at his story of the runaway elephant. And how beautifully she played and sang for him in the drawing room after dinner. A shameless exhibition, yes, but have we any right to blame her?
After all, I'm a penniless orphan girl. I have no kind parents to arrange a match, so I have to do it myself. To be sure, I've only a fortnight, but there's no harm in trying.
It would be wonderful to have Becky for a sister-in-law. I wonder if Papa would approve.
Well, if little Miss Sharp doesn't get him, some other will. Mark my words, Joss is destined to be a prey to women. It's a mercy he didn't come home from India with a black Mrs. Sedley and a dozen mahogany offspring.
Gad, I do believe the little thing's in love with me. Devilish attractive filly, too, to make a sensation at the balls in Calcutta. Hasn't any tin, of course, but I might go farther and fare worse.
Before a week had passed, the entire household was in a flutter of excitement. Joss was in constant attendance. He paid the most extravagant compliments to Becky's musical talents. He recounted his favorite Indian stories with unheard-of eloquence. He sprang to open doors with killing grace. And one day, his gallantry actually extended to the purchase of a nosegay of flowers.
Why, Mr. Joss, what heavenly flowers.
Oh, nothing at all, really. Bought them in Covent Garden Market as I was passing.
It was really most thoughtful. They're very, very beautiful.
Well, beauty to beauty, you know, and all that sort of thing.
La, Mr. Joss, such a pretty speech.
Oh, by the by, Miss Sharp, I've been wondering if you'd care to come to Vauxhall Gardens this evening. I'm having a small party there.
Vauxhall? Oh, how wonderful. I should love to, Mr. Joss.
Capital. We shall be 5 then. Amelia's coming, of course, and young George Osborne and Major Dobbin, splendid fellows, just back from Canada with their regiment. Sure you'll like them.
But of course I shall, if they're friends of yours, Mr. Joss.
Oh, I say, really now.
You know, I've never been to Vauxhall. It will be a perfect farewell party.
Farewell party? Gad, Miss Sharp, what do you mean?
Just that, Mr. Joss. I'm to leave for Queen's Crawley on Thursday.
Thursday? But, Dammy, I mean, that's the day after tomorrow.
I know. But I received a frank from Sir Pitt Crawley by this morning's post, and he's most anxious that I assume my duties.
But surely you'll come back to see us very soon, Miss Sharp.
I fear not, Mr. Joss. Not for a very long time. You see, if I'm to be governess to Sir Pitt's children, I shall have no time whatever to travel from Hampshire.
Oh, but look here, must you leave? I mean, couldn't you stay if, that's to say, wouldn't you...
Yes, Mr. Joss?
Nothing. But perhaps I'd better take these flowers along to Pinner and have them put them in water, if you'll excuse me.
Of course, Mr. Joss. Oh, dear, he almost said it. Perhaps he will tonight. Yes, he must propose tonight. Tonight at Vauxhall, or never.
Waiter, rack punch, my man. Bowl of rack punch.
Oh, Joss, not another bowl. You've had more than sufficient now.
Oh, nonsense, my dear. Nothing sufficient for the day thereof. Miss Sharp will have some more, won't you, Miss Sharp, eh, my diddle darling?
Why, Mr. Joss.
Waiter, where's that waiter fellow? More punch, my man. More punch, I say.
For pity's sake, sit down, Joss. Everyone in the garden is turned this way.
Oh, let him turn, Osmond, let him turn. Good, solid British faces, everyone, by Jove. Rule Britannia, Britannia, rule the way. Britons
Joss,
never
stop it.
shall be slaves.
Joss, will you please sit down and behave?
Sit down, never, my boy, never. Britons never shall be slaves.
Grip Fetter, and go, Daniel Lambert.
Ahoy, me buckos, gather round. Bowl of wreck punch for the lot of you.
Oh, George, please let's go. Where are the shawls? Major Dobbin has them. He's gone to watch the fireworks.
More glasses, waiter. Bumper for every man jack of them. And we'll drink to little Miss Sharp. My dearest, diddle, darling Miss Sharp.
George, do something. Please do something, please.
Where in heaven's name is Dobbin?
Here he comes. My gracious, how fierce he looks.
Be off with you. Be off with you, everybody.
Hang it, Dobbin. Where the deuce have you been?
Been to see the fireworks.
Here, give me the shawls, and you take care of Joss.
All right.
Amelia, Becky, come along. I'll take you to the carriage. Dobbin, stay with Joss.
Oh, Britannia.
Joss, old boy, compose yourself.
Oh, good old Dobbin of ours. Finest officer in the service.
Yes.
Finest fellow in the
Come
world.
along now, Joss, old boy. I'll take you to my
You
quarters.
shall drink at my wedding, Dobbin. At my wedding with little Miss Sharp.
Yes, come along now.
Dearest, diddle, darling Miss Sharp. I've made up my mind. By Jove, I'll marry her tomorrow.
Why, Amelia, for shame, calling your brother a wretch.
Well, he is. His behavior last night was entirely disgraceful. Drinking all that rack punch and singing and shouting and making an exhibition of himself.
Well, I expect he's suffering for his sins today.
I have never, ever been so publicly humiliated in my life.
Oh, Amelia, don't be such a spoilsport. I thought Joss was very droll. Did you know that he called me his soul's darling 4 times?
Oh, Becky, I'm sure he'll propose this evening.
Well, if he doesn't, I shall have to leave in the morning.
Oh, dear, if you could only stay longer.
Oh, excuse me, Miss Amelia.
Yes, Pinner?
Here's a note come for you, miss.
Oh, thank you, Pinner.
Is it from George, you lucky girl?
I do hope so. Why, it's from Joss.
From Joss? To you?
Yes, he says, Dearest Amelia, I was too ill to come to Tiffin today. Pray excuse me if you can to the amiable Miss Sharp for my conduct last night at Vauxhall, and entreat her to pardon and forget every word I may have uttered when excited by that fatal supper. I leave town today for Cheltenham, for my health is much shaken. As soon as I recover, I shall go to Scotland for
Scotland?
Oh, Becky. Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
It was the death warrant. All was over. Destiny had intervened in the shape of a bowl of rack punch, and the future governess of Queen's Crawley bowed before it. At Russell Square next morning, after the tenderest caresses, the most pathetic tears, and the requisition of the smelling bottle, Becky and Amelia parted, each vowing to write every day and to love the other forever and ever and ever.
My dearest Amelia, what is there to tell you of the sayings and doings at Queen's Crawley? Before breakfast, a walk with Sir Pitt through the park and the gardens of the estate. After breakfast, studies with my 2 tiresome little pupils. After schoolroom, writing long letters about pigs and poachers and county affairs, for I am become Sir Pitt's secretary now. After dinner, reading tedious novels aloud to my Lady Crawley, who is a very sad invalid, poor soul, and spends much of her time in bed taking pills. So you can see that life at Queen's... My dear, the most exciting thing has happened. Sir Pitt's sister has come from London to pay us a visit. Yes, the great rich Miss Crawley with £70,000 in the 5%. Whom, or I had better say which, Sir Pitt adores. You should see him struggling to settle her cushions and hand her coffee. I suspect he is anxious to borrow some money. Sir Pitt's second son, Captain Rawdon, has also appeared on leave from his regiment. He is a very large young dandy. Blood, I believe is the term, and is said to have once shot a man in a duel. Miss Crawley appears to dote upon him, and some say that he will inherit her fortune when she dies. It's quite possible, too, I should think, as Miss Crawley holds the rest of the family in great contempt, and is quite outspoken about it. Fortunately, however, she seems to have taken a fancy to me, and almost every evening...
Becky Sharp.
Yes, Miss Crawley?
Come and sit by me, my dear. You're the only person fit to talk to in the whole wretched county.
Oh, ma'am.
You've more brains than half the shire. Indeed, if Met had its reward, you ought to be a duchess.
I? A duchess, ma'am?
Certainly. Why not? You're prettier far than most. And as for birth, look at my brother, Sir Pitt. Look at all those dreary Huddlestones who've been here since Henry II. Is there any one of them you're equal in intelligence of reading? Pah! You're not equal to Briggs, my companion, or Bowles, my butler. Yes, my love. You must marry a duke.
It would be very delightful.
And very amusing, too. I adore all imprudent matches. What I like best is for a nobleman to marry a miller's daughter, as Lord Flowerdale did. It makes all the women so angry. And what I like next best is for a poor fellow to run away with a rich girl. You know, I've set my heart on Rawdon running away with someone.
A rich someone? Or a poor someone?
Why, you little goose, a rich someone. Rawdon hasn't a shilling but what I give him. He's riddled with debts, the naughty boy. He must repair his fortune and succeed in the world.
Is your nephew very clever?
Rawdon clever? Not an idea in the world beyond his horses and his regiment and his hunting and his play.
But you're very fond of him, aren't you, Miss Crawley?
Fond of him? I adore him. He's so delightfully wicked. Did you know he's fought 3 bloody duels?
Dear, he's so delightfully wicked. He brings his hunters home with him, asks whom he pleases to dinner, and gets on pretty gaily with the young squires of the county, with whom he drinks and bets and rides. Miss Crawley says he has a dreadful reputation with the ladies, but it may be that she is biased. Although I must tell you, the other evening when the captain walked with me back from...
Egad, a devilish fine night, what, Miss Sharp? Mark those stars up there, eh?
Oh, yes, they're very beautiful. I feel almost a spirit when I gaze upon them.
Eh? Ah, yes. Gad, so do I. Exactly, Miss Sharp. I say, you don't mind my cigar, I hope?
Oh, no, on the contrary, I love it. Tell me, does it taste as fine as it smells?
Oh, Tabby, better, much better. Do you care to try it and see?
Oh, no, Captain Crawley.
Why, come along, just a puff, Miss Sharp.
Do you think I dare?
Why, certainly, certainly. Here you are.
Well... Oh, gracious. Oh, I declare, Captain Rawdon, I think you'd better smoke the rest.
Right you are, Miss Sharp. Gad, capital, capital. Finest cigar I ever tasted, by Jove.
Why, Captain Rawdon. Dearest Amelia, I am writing this in great haste as I leave today for London with Miss Crawley, who is returning to her house in Park Lane. Sir Pitt is most unwilling to have me leave my pupils, but Miss Crawley insists. I do hope that while I'm in London, the opportunity will... Dearest Amelia, as you see, I am still at Park Lane after all these weeks, and still I have not seen you. I expect you are acquainted with the melancholy news of my Lady Crawley's demise. Poor Sir Pitt, twice a widower. I do feel sorry for him. He's a very uncouth old man in many ways, but he was most kind to me at Queen's Crawley. And now that his wife is gone... Come in. Yes, Briggs, what is it?
It's Sir Pitt, Miss Becky.
Sir Pitt? Here?
Yes, Miss Becky. I think you'd better come down. He's all in black crape for the funeral and seems most agitated.
All right, Briggs, I'll come down at once.
Thank you, Miss Becky.
Well, I wonder what he can want.
I want you back at Queen's Crawley, Becky.
Oh, but I daren't, Sir Pitt. Now that Lady Crawley has gone, I don't think it would be right to be alone with you.
Damn it, I can't get on without you. I don't see what it was till you went away. The house isn't the same place, and all me accounts has got muddled again. You must come back, Becky. Dear Becky, say you'll come.
Come? It's what, Sir Pitt?
Come as Lady Crawley, if you like. There. Will that satisfy you? Come back as my wife. You're fit for it. First be hanged. You're as good a lady as ever I see. You've got more brains in your finger than any baronet's wife in the county. Will you come? Yes or no?
Oh, Sir Pitt.
Say yes, Becky. I'm an old man, but a good un. I'll make you happy, Becky. See if I don't. You shall do what you like, spend what you like, and have it all your own way. I'll make you a settlement. I'll do everything regular.
Oh, Sir Pitt. Oh, Sir... Please don't think me ungrateful, but I can't marry you. You see, I'm married already.
Am I to credit my ears, Briggs, that Sir Pitt actually proposed to Miss Becky? Yes, Miss Crawley. And she had the impertinence to refuse him? Yes, Miss Crawley. So, she doesn't consider our family good enough for her, eh? Well, we shall see. Send her to me the instant she comes in. I'm afraid she won't come in soon, Miss Crawley. She's gone out for quite some time. In fact, she's gone altogether. What? Yes, Miss Crawley, she decamped last night. Briggs, if this is some sort of a practical... No, Miss Crawley, it's true. She left this letter for me. I found it on her pillow this morning. Letter for you? Why not for me? Well, I... Give it to me. Dear Miss Briggs, the kindest heart in the world as yours is will pity and sympathize with me. With tears and prayers and blessings, I leave the house where I've ever met with kindness and affection. Claims, even superior to those of my benefactress, call me hence. Eh? When I told Sir Pitt that I could not be his wife, I should have told him all, but my courage failed me. I could not marry him because I am his daughter-in-law. Yes, I am wedded to Captain Rawdon. Rawdon married to Becky, a governess, a nobody. Oh, Miss Crawley. Oh, gracious, help, somebody help. Bring the smelling bottle, Miss Crawley's fainted.
Suppose the old girl will ever forgive us.
Of course, my darling. She can't stay angry forever.
Well, it's been over 3 months now, you know, and she still denies me the door.
Fine, never mind. I shall make your fortune.
Gad, I believe you will at that. You've had enough for both of us. Damn it.
Oh, Rawdon. Look, there's a full moon over the channel.
Hey. Sure, so there is, as bright as day.
You can almost see the coast of France. Did you know that the moon is 236,847 miles off?
Are you sure?
Positive. We learned it all at Miss Pinkerton's. Smell the salt. Oh, Rawdon, aren't you glad we came down here?
Well, yes, I suppose a comfortable inn at Brighton is better than a sponging house in Chancery.
And it's such a relief not having those horrid duns and bailiffs forever haunting the door.
Still, I expect they'll follow us down here in time.
Pooh, let them. We'll find some means to give them the slip. We've always managed before.
Pardon my soul, Mrs. C, you'd beat the devil. I swear there's not a woman in Europe who can talk over a creditor as you.
Isn't that why you married me?
Vicky, if I'm not in luck at the tables tonight, we shan't be able to pay our bill.
Then we'll just have to stay till Miss Crawley relents.
You really think she will?
Of course, you silly, eventually. Why, you're her favorite nephew. She dotes on you. And when she dies, she'll leave you all her money, and we'll pay off all our creditors and take a beautiful house in Park Lane. And then you can stop gambling and quit your horrid old regiment.
Oh, I'm afraid I shan't be able to quit the regiment, whatever happens.
Why not?
We've been ordered abroad.
Abroad?
Yes, to Belgium. Duke of Wellington's there already. I'm to go as General Tufto's aide-de-camp.
But, Rawdon, why haven't you told me before?
Oh, I didn't know for certain. Of course, we've been expecting it ever since Boney landed at Cairns, but the marching order came only today. We embarked from Chatham in 2 weeks' time.
Oh, Rawdon.
Now, don't worry. Mayn't be any fighting, you know. Most likely turn out to be just a military occupation.
I'm not worried, really. I'm just surprised. From where did you say we embark?
We?
Well, surely you know I intend to go with you.
But, Becky...
General Topto is an old flirt of mine. Of course I shall go. But first I shall have to buy some new clothes. They say Brussels is teeming with ladies of fashion.
And Becky was certainly right. For when she and Rawdon arrived in Brussels, they found themselves in one of the gayest and most brilliant little capitals in Europe, with all the booths of Vanity Fair laid out in tempting profusion. Gambling was here, and dancing and feasting, the whole enlivened with military splendor. And Becky, as became the wife of a general's aide-de-camp, moved through it all with confident ease. She attended the opera and drove in the park, mingling with the great lords and ladies there as though to the fashion-born. In fact, within a fortnight, Becky had managed to acquire an astonishing number of distinguished new friends. And then, as chance would have it, one day she encountered some old ones.
Rawdon? Rawdon, where are you?
In here. Oh, very late, my dear. We're dining with Lady Bareacres. Where have you been?
Riding in the park with General Tufto. And Rawdon, guess whom we met?
Napoleon Bonaparte.
No, you goose. Amelia Sedley.
Never heard of her.
Of course you have. I've told you about it dozens of times. We were at Miss Pinkerton's together.
Oh, yes. The little girl from Russell Square.
Yes. And she's quite grown up now and married to an old flame, George Osborne. He's here with one of the line regiments.
George Osborne?
Yes. Do you know him?
Goodish-looking fellow with long black whiskers?
Enormous.
Yes, I know the fellow. Won 200 of them at the cocoa tree one night. Fancies he could play billiards. Young flat.
I suppose we shall have to ask them here.
Damn me, yes, by all means, my dear. Young Osborne should prove very useful just now.
What do you mean?
Well, Brussels is devilish expensive, you know. I wonder if he plays pig-headed as badly as billiards.
Rawdon, you are a wicked, scheming wretch. We shall have them to dine on Tuesday.
So the four old friends were reunited and for a time seemed quite inseparable. They met constantly in each other's apartments, dined together at restaurateurs, and shared a box at the opera. Indeed, it was altogether a most happy and charming arrangement.
I say, what the deuce has got into young Osborne, making an awful fool of himself over Crawley's wife?
Yes, I can't say I blame him, though. Monstrous attractive young woman, that.
My dear, she simply throws herself at him. I watched her the other night at the opera.
I know, it's scandalous, and I feel so sorry for poor Mrs. Osborne. Do you suppose she knows what's going on?
Oh, yes. Amelia knew what went on all right, but she seemed powerless to prevent it. She realized only too well that she was no match for Becky's flash and dazzle, and though she wept and pined in secret, she said nothing at all to George. And George, for his part, seemed quite content to lose hundreds of pounds to Rawdon, so long as Becky was on hand to console him. As for Becky and Rawdon themselves, well, that worthy young couple understood one another perfectly. So the little tragic comedy continued. But the interest of Vanity Fair, and indeed all Brussels, was presently diverted by an event of far more spectacular scope. The Duchess of Richmond's historic ball. There was a sound of revelry by night, and Belgium's capital had gathered then her beauty and her chivalry, and bright the lamps shone o'er fair women and brave men.
Lady Jane, may I have the honor of this dance?
Why, thank you, General, of course.
Poor dear General Tufto, he does waltz so badly.
So persistently.
But, my dears, such a gallant seat.
Well, Colonel, enjoying yourself?
Oh, yes. Haven't seen such a ball like this since London.
Devilish fine cellar, too, the Duke's. Wonder if you'd care to part with a pint.
Couldn't say, really. Suppose we ask him, what?
I say, Blanche, who's in
that stunning young woman in pink?
Where, my lord?
Over by the staircase, just came in.
Why, don't you know? That's Mrs. Rowden Crawley.
Is it now? Upon my honor, she's a radiant creature. Mark those young bucks throbbing round her, eh? 50 if there's one.
They say her husband ran away with her out of a convent. Really? I understood she was a dancer in the Paris Opera.
Nonsense, my dear. She's a relation of the Montmorency family. Told me so herself.
Then, of course, it must be true.
Shouldn't be surprised if we saw a bit of action soon. Boney's getting deucedly close, you know.
Of course you can upstart. You'll never dare pass the frontier.
Amelia, dearest, how nice to see you.
Good evening, Becky.
But why are you all by yourself in the corner? Surely you're not feeling ill.
No, I'm quite well, thank you.
Well, I must say you look very poorly. Or is it the dress that does it? Oh, by the by, you naughty little minx, who was the man I saw you dancing with as I came in? The very tall, awkward one with the yellow face.
Are you referring to Major Dobbin?
Dobbin? Is that his name? Haven't I met him somewhere?
Yes, at Russell Square. He's George's closest friend.
Of course I remember now that earliest party at Vauxhall. Oh, poor Major Dobbin. Are his feet still as clumsy as ever?
I don't know. You might ask him. Here he comes now with George.
Hello, by Jove. Look who's here. Gad, Becky, you do look a treat. You remember Dobbin, of course.
Yes, indeed. How do you do, Major Dobbin?
How do you do, Mrs. Crawley?
George, you wretch, where have you been? Here's poor Amelia quite alone and crying her eyes out for you. Have you come to fetch me for the quadrille?
Oh, yes. Mustn't this lad, eh? I say, Dobb, old boy, just look for Becky's shawl, will you? There's a good fellow. Come on, Beck.
What a humbug that woman is. She writhes and twists about like a snake. All the while she was talking, she was acting for General Tufto over the way. And look at her now, dancing with George.
Dobbin, you've always been so kind to me. I'm not feeling very well. Would you please take me home?
On with the dance. Let joy be unconfined. No sleep to mourn. When youth and pleasure meet, to chase the glowing hours with flying feet.
I tell you, there's no army in Europe can stand against the Duke. Yeah. Was there ever a battle won like Salamanca?
Quite right, my boy, quite right. And where did he learn his art, eh? India, my boy, India. Jungle's the school for a general. Mark me that.
Yeah. I say, George. Why, here's Dobbin of ours. Hello, Dobb. Come and have a drink. Here, sir, give me another bumper.
George, I say, don't drink anymore.
Nonsense, Dobb. Nothing like it. Come and have one yourself. Light up your London jaws, old boy. Here's to you.
George, leave it. The enemy has passed the Sound and our left is already engaged. Come on, we march in 3 hours.
You don't suppose I'm afraid, do you, Becky?
Of course not, my darling.
I'm a pretty good mark for a shot, you know. If it brings me down, well, let's see what there is for you. Had a pretty good run of luck this week. Here's £230.
But, Rawdon...
I've 10 Napoleons in my pocket. It's as much as I shall need. If I drop, why, you know I cost you nothing.
Oh, my darling. Dearest love.
Come, don't cry, Mrs. C. I may live to vex you yet. Now, let's see. There's my double barrel by Manton. That should bring you 40 guineas. My driving cloak lined with sable, say £50. My dueling pistols, another 20. Then there's my dressing case and the ticker and chain.
The sun was just rising as the march began, and a gallant sight it was. The band led the column, playing the regimental march. Then came the major in command, riding his charger. Next, the grenadiers in their scarlet coats with the colors borne in the center. Then George came, marching at the head of his company. He looked up at Amelia, standing on the balcony, smiled, and passed on. And soon, even the sound of the music died away to the south.
But, Amelia, dearest, what is it?
Why did you come here? To see how unhappy I am?
I came to see if you were well.
And are you well? Yes, I dare say you are.
You don't love your husband. You wouldn't be here if you did. Oh, Becky, how could you?
How could I? What?
Did I ever do you anything but kindness, did I?
Why, no.
When you were quite poor, did I befriend you and bring you to my home?
Yes, of course.
And why did you try to take George from me?
Amelia!
Did you think you could love him as I did? You couldn't. His love is everything to me. You knew it. Wanted to rob me of it. Why, Becky? Why?
Amelia, I protest before God I have done my husband no wrong.
And have you done me no wrong? You didn't succeed, but you tried. Why did you do it, Becky? We only had 6 weeks together. You might have spared me those. Now he's gone.
Amelia, don't. He'll come back. I know he will. What's that?
It's cannon. Oh, God, defend us, they've started.
The advance has been crushed.
They've cut them to pieces.
The Duke of Brunswick is killed.
It's all over. The British army's in flight. Napoleon has broken the armies in two.
He's overpowered the English. He's marching straight on Brussels.
He's overpowered the English. He's marching on Brussels.
He'll be here tonight.
He'll be here tonight.
History has recorded what a scene of hurry and alarm Brussels that day presented. Rumor followed rumor, and all day long the roaring of cannon never ceased. Crowds rushed to the Namur Gate from which direction the noise proceeded. Horses and carriages raced through the streets in frantic retreat. Women rushed to the churches and crowded the chapels and knelt and prayed on the flags and steps. And all day long, 10 miles away at Waterloo, the lines of English infantry received and repelled the furious charges of Napoleon's cavalry. The guns which were heard at Brussels were plowing up their ranks, and comrades falling and the resolute survivors closing in. Then, towards evening, the attacks of the French began to slacken. They were preparing for a final onset. It came, at last. The dark, rolling column of the Imperial Guard marched up the hill of Saint-Jean. On and up it pressed. It seemed almost to crest the eminence, when it began to wave and falter, and finally stopped still, facing the shot. Then at last the English troops charged from the post, and the guard of Napoleon turned and fled. No more firing was heard in Brussels. The pursuit rolled miles away. Darkness came down on the field and city, and Amelia was praying for George, who was lying on his face, dead, a bullet through his heart.
Some news for you. Rawdon, do you remember the Bear-Acres whom we met in Brussels during the war, the Earl and his lady?
Yes.
Well, they're here in Paris. I met them in the Tuileries this afternoon, and... Why, Rawdon, what's the matter?
It's happened, Becky. It's happened at last.
What? What's happened?
Just received a communication from Wex's.
Wex's?
My aunt's solicitors in London.
Oh. And?
She left everything to my brother.
Oh, Rawdon. Not everything.
All but the house in Park Lane. That went to Miss Briggs.
Oh, my dear.
A ruin, Becky. Utterly.
Well, you would run off with the governess.
What are we going to do?
Go back to England, of course.
Back to England?
Well, we can't stay here in Paris. We owe too much money. And besides, it's beginning to bore me.
But, Becky, we're ruined. We can't live in London on nothing a year.
We've done it before.
But why London? The tables are better in Berlin or Vienna.
My darling Rawdon, gambling is very good to help your income, but not as an income itself.
Just where do you suggest that I find an income?
In London. You must sell out from the Guards and go on half pay. Then your precious brother shall find you an appointment, and his tiresome little wife shall be my sponsor in London society. We shall live in Mayfair and entertain only the very best people. Ruin, my darling? Fiddle-dee-dee.
So Becky and Rawdon returned to London, established themselves in a snug little house in Curzon Street, and proceeded to demonstrate with infinite skill the fine art of living on nothing a year. By a sparing use of ready money and by paying scarcely anybody, people can manage, for a time at least, to make a great show in Vanity Fair. And a very great show Becky made. You saw demure chariots with blazing lamps at her door from which stepped very great people. You beheld her carriage in Hyde Park, surrounded by dandies of note. The little box in the third tier of the opera was crowded with fashionable heads. Her parties were announced laboriously in all the leading papers.
Crawley had an assembly which was attended by the Countess of Cheshire, Major General and Lady MacLeod, the Marquis of Steyne, the Earl of Southdown, Viscount Perry.
The select party at dinner at their house in Curzon Street, Mayfair. Their Excellencies the Prince and Princess of Peterwaradin, the Duchess Dowager of Stilton, the Marquis of Steyne, His Excellency Papush Pasha, the Turkish ambassador, attended by Kibopi, Dragoman of the Mission.
And so on and so on. But of all the exalted personages who crowded the little drawing room in Curzon Street, the most illustrious and certainly the most frequent visitor was that elderly roué, the most honourable George Gustavus, Marquis of Steyne, Earl of Gaunt and Gaunt Castle in the Peerage of Ireland, Baron Pytchley and Grilsby, Knight of the Most Noble Order of the Garter, of the Golden Fleece of Spain, of the... In short, Lord Steyne, nobleman of the highest rank. Indeed, it is doubtful whether Becky could have found a more valuable sponsor in all of Vanity Fair.
Dear Lord Steyne, how good of you to call. I'm sorry to have kept you waiting, but I was in the kitchen making a pudding.
I know. I saw you through the area railings as I drove up.
You see everything, my lord.
A few things, but not that, my pretty little fibster. Making a pudding, indeed. I heard you in the room overhead, where I've no doubt you were putting on a little rouge. Artful hussy.
Is it a crime to try and look my best when you call?
So you're bent on becoming a fine lady, eh? You pester my poor old life out to get you into the world. Pah! You silly little fool. You won't be able to hold your own there. You got no money.
You will get us a place.
You've got no money and you want to compete with those who have. Gad, women are all alike, striving for what isn't worth the having. I suppose you won't let me rest till I arrange to have you presented at court.
Presented? Oh, Lord Steyne.
Yes, but you won't thank me when I do, I tell you. You'll be bored to extinction. The women will bully you and...
Come in. Yes.
Excuse me, ma'am. Will the master be dining at home tonight?
Yes, he will.
Thank you, ma'am. I just wanted to be sure.
Confound it, why must that loathsome female interrupt us every time I call?
Doesn't your lordship fancy my sheepdog?
I do not. I abominate the wretch. Sniffing about behind doors, spying on us. Why do you keep such a creature?
I'm afraid I can't send her away.
Nonsense, why not?
Well,
You owe her wages, I suppose.
Worse than that, my lord. I've ruined her.
Ruined her? Then why don't you turn her out?
Only men do that, my lord. Women are not so unfeeling.
What the devil do you mean you've ruined her?
Just that. A year ago, when we were reduced to our last guinea, she saved us. She gave us everything, and now she shan't leave me till I can pay her to the utmost farthing, or until we are completely ruined ourselves, which doesn't seem far off.
How much do you owe her?
£1,200.
£1,200? Good gad, Mrs. Crawley.
Oh, I couldn't help it, Lord Steyne. It was my only chance to save us. I daren't tell Rawdon. He would kill me if he knew I'd borrowed from a servant. I've kept it a secret from everyone but you, and you forced it from me. Oh, Lord Steyne, what am I to do? I'm so humiliated and so desperately unhappy.
Come now, Mrs. Crawley. It's really not as bad as all that. Surely something can be done. £1,200, you say?
Yes, £1,200.
And how do you wish to take it, Mrs. Crawley?
I'll take £200 in small notes and the remainder in one note. And remember, please, I wish only the very best brocade. I shall be wearing it to the palace.
It's disgraceful, entirely disgraceful.
What can Lord Steyne be thinking of?
Woman's an unscrupulous adventuress.
I tell you, it's an insult to the entire royal family.
It certainly wouldn't have happened if Queen Charlotte were alive.
Thus the voices of Vanity Fair, and perhaps they were right. But once Becky had donned her train and feathers and made her curtsy before the sovereign, the voices faded discreetly the tallest doors of the greatest houses in London were opened, and the amiable Mrs. Crawley penetrated to the very center of Vanity Fair. In a word, Becky had arrived. But there was one who watched these triumphs with a growing sense of alarm. In the midst of all the fine banquets and wise and brilliant personages, Rawdon Crawley was ill at ease. The crazy edifice of luxury and debt which he and Becky had built for themselves was reaching nightmarish proportions. Yet Becky's entertainment seemed more lavish than ever, her wardrobe more extensive. And then, some 3 months after Becky's presentation at court, it happened.
Beg your pardon, Mr. Crawley. I wish to speak with you most particularly.
Eh? What's this? Oh, it's you, Mark.
It's me, all right, and it's no use trying to bolt. We're free honest.
Well, how much is it this time?
Only a small thing, £166, 6 shillings and 8 pence. At the suit of Nathan's.
I'll pay it tomorrow.
He wants it now.
But, my dear fellow, I haven't £160 in my pocket.
More's the pity then, sir. I'm afraid you'll have to come along.
What? Where to?
Cursitor Street, sir. Chancery Lane.
And so, dear Becky, please make haste. As soon as you get this, drive to Nathan's, offer him 75 down and ask him to renew. If he won't stand it, take my ticker and such of your things as you can spare and send them to board.
You know something I said when I read your letter. Sick as I was, for I am in a fever, I instantly called for the carriage and drove to Nathan's. I saw him, I wept, I cried, I fell at his odious knees, but nothing would mollify the wretch. He would have all the money, he said, or keep my poor monster in prison. So, quite disconsolate, I drove back home. And whom should I find waiting but Lady Bareacre, such a dear, sweet old lady. She'd come to compliment me upon my performance in the charade at the party last night.
You can laugh and talk about compliments paid while I rot in a sponging house. By gad, there's something behind all this. Confound the woman. I'll get out of this wretched hole if I have to plead with that pious fool of a brother of mine.
And suiting the thought to action, Rawdon sat down and wrote a frantic note to his brother, beseeching him, for the sake of the family's honor, for the sake of God, to come and relieve him. The entreaty had its effect. By 9 o'clock that night, Rawdon was free. He ran through the streets and across the great squares of Vanity Fair until at length, breathless, he reached his house in Curzon Street. Once there, however, he stopped in surprise and fell back against the railing, trembling as he looked up. Becky had written she was ill and in bed. Yet the drawing-room windows were ablaze with light. In an agony of suspicion, Rawdon stood in the street for several minutes. Then he took out his door key and let himself in. There was laughter in the upper rooms. The piano was playing. And as Rawdon went silently up the stairs, he could hear the voice of Lord Steyne.
Brava, brava! Exquisite, my dear, exquisite. Upon my honor, you've the hands of an artist. Permit me to kiss each one of them.
Dear Lord Steyne. Rawdon.
Well, Crawley, come back, what? Yes, I've come back. How do you do? Becky, stand up.
Rawdon.
I said stand up. Come here. Where did you get that necklace? Those bracelets? That diamond brooch?
Rawdon, please.
Answer my question. Where did you get them?
I say, look here, Crawley.
Stand aside.
But, my dear fellow...
Stand aside, I tell you. Oh, get out of my house. Get out. Very well, Crawley. But you wanted to know where your wife got her jewels? I'll tell you. She got them from me.
No. No, I'm innocent, Rawdon. I swear I'm innocent.
Innocent be damned. Why, every trinket you have in your body is paid for by me. I've given you thousands of pounds.
No.
Yes, thousands of pounds, which your husband spends.
You lie. You filthy swine, you lie. Get out of my house before I kill you. What's in this desk?
Nothing. Only some letters and papers.
Open it.
No.
Open it or I'll smash it open.
No. No. I'll open it.
What are these? Banknotes? Dozens of them. £1,000 and more. You lied to me. You had all this money, and yet you let me. Did Stain give it you? Send it back to him today. You might have spared me 100 out of all this, Becky. I've always shared with you.
And with this, Rawdon left her, sitting alone on the edge of the bed. The drawers and the wardrobes and boxes were open, the contents scattered about, dresses and feathers, scarves and trinkets, a heap of tumbled vanities lying in a wreck.
You don't love your husband. You wouldn't be here if you did.
Dead women are all alike, striving for what isn't worth the having.
There's my double barrel by Manton. That should bring you 40 guineas. Our driving cloak lined with sable, say £50. Our dueling pistols, another 20. You might have spared me 100 out of all this, Becky. I've always shared with you.
I say, did you see this in the Observer? Rawdon Crawley's been appointed governor of Coventry Island.
Coventry Island? Not quite sure, actually. West Indies or somewhere. One of the colonies.
Crawley a governor, eh? Jove. Wonder how he managed it.
Expect his brother managed it. Anything to get the fellow out of England.
Monstrous business, that Stain affair. Caught some land together, you know.
Wonder what became of Mrs. Crawley.
Understand she went abroad. Fellow at the club said he met her at Boulogne. Someone else said she was in Vienna.
To think I once entertained that creature.
She travels under an assumed name, you know. Calls herself Madame de Rawdon.
Lady Partlet saw her in Lausanne with the most disreputable people.
My dear, she's known to every gaming table in Europe.
Is it true she was arrested in Naples?
I heard she was running a boarding house in Paris.
A boarding house? My dear, don't be naive.
But enough of scandal-mongering. 2 years have to pass before we hear of an incident recounted by an old friend of ours from Russell Square, Jos Sedley. For some time, Jos's health had been failing, and acting upon the advice of his doctors, he had journeyed to a small town of the Rhineland to take a course in the waters there, as Jos related it.
It was really a most extraordinary evening. I attended a ball at the Stadthaus, you know. It was a masquerade, as a matter of fact. Everyone in carnival costume, masks and that sort of thing. My doctor had advised me against dancing, so I went into the gaming room to watch the roulette.
Messieurs, dames, faites-vous jeu.
There was a woman in a black mask sitting at one of the play tables. I couldn't help noticing her. She was holding a small card with markings on it, and each time the croupier called out the colour and number, she'd carefully pick on the card with a pin. Some sort of system, I expect.
Monsieur ne joue pas?
I put down a nap or so, you know.
No. A nap at dinner, yes?
Of course, a nap after dinner. Jolly good.
Perhaps Monsieur would care to come and sit by me and bring me good luck, no?
Why, really now, God bless my soul.
Come, Jos Sedley. There's no need to be shy with me.
What's that? I say, good God, who is it?
Don't you know me, Jos?
Well, that is...
Perhaps if I take off my mask. There. Now do you know me, Jos?
Gracious heavens, why, it's Becky.
So you haven't forgotten me?
Well, of course not. God bless my soul.
I should have known you anywhere.
Well, indeed, would you? After all these years?
The years have changed you very little, Jos. And only for the good.
Oh, I say rarely, you know.
But we mustn't talk here. We'll disturb the play. Come. There's a little terrace out on the other side. Yes, I should have known you anywhere, Jos. There are some things a woman never forgets.
God bless my soul.
Tell me, Jos, where's your dear sister? Is she well and happy?
Yes, I believe so. She's in England still, married again, you know.
No.
Yes, married old Dobbin of ours, as a matter of fact.
Dobbin? You mean Major Dobbin?
Yes, he's colonel now, retired, quitted the service some years ago. They have a place down in Hampshire.
Hampshire? Queen's Cross? Oh, dear.
Oh, I say, have I said something I shouldn't?
No, Joss. I was just thinking how far away it seems, and how long ago it is, and how happy I was before...
Oh, I say, look here, please, Mrs. Crawley.
I'm sorry, Joss. It's foolish to shed tears over the past. The present is quite bitter enough. You knew, of course, that Rawdon died.
No, I didn't.
Yes, he contracted yellow fever at Coventry Island some months ago.
Oh, I say, I'm dreadfully sorry.
You need not be, Joss. He deserved no better end. After the way he treated me, I was the truest wife a man could have had, and yet he trampled on me and deserted me and left me to wander alone and unhappy.
Dead, my dear Mrs. Crawley.
Oh, Joss, please don't call me Mrs. Crawley. We're old friends, are we not?
Why, yes, of course, Becky.
Thank you, Joss. You don't know what a comfort it is to know I have one friend in the world. Everyone else has been false to me and slandered me. My husband, my family. Oh, Joss, I'm so unhappy. And I do need a friend so very much.
In letters home to his sister, Joss never once referred to his meeting with Becky. Perhaps he felt that Amelia would not be interested. Or perhaps there were other reasons. At any rate, he continued to live on a continent, traveling from place to place, his health growing more and more infirm, his letters less and less frequent. And then one day, the letters ceased altogether, and word was received in England that Joss Sedley had died at Aix-la-Chapelle. His sister Amelia's reaction to the news was much as might be expected.
I'll never forgive myself. Never, never, never.
Please, Amelia, you mustn't go on like this.
But it was all my fault, Dobbin. I should never have let him go abroad alone when he was so ill. Oh, poor Joss. Think of him dying in some strange hotel, all alone, with no one to care for him.
But, my dear, he wasn't alone.
Yes, he was.
No, my dear. The doctor told me that Mrs. Crawley tended him most admirably.
What did you say?
I said that Mrs. Crawley tended him most admirably. She
Mrs.
was...
Crawley? Becky was there at Aix-la-Chapelle?
Yes. She'd been with Joss for quite some time.
But Dobbin...
She occupied a suite of apartments in the same hotel. She was with him at the end.
But, Dobbin, I don't understand. Becky, of all people, why, she never cared for Joss. She never cared for anyone, except herself. Why should she
I think the reason is quite simple. Joss carried a very heavy life insurance, you know.
Insurance? Dobbin, you don't mean to
Yes.
say...
He left her every shilling.
I see. Well, I remember at Miss Pinkerton's, Becky always said she wanted money more than anything else in the world. She should be very happy now.
I wonder.
So do I.
Ah, vanitas vanitatum. Which of us is happy in this world? Which of us has his desire, or having it, is satisfied? Come, amiable listener, let us shut up the box and the puppets, for our play is played out.
Stage 47, Item 8. William Makepeace Thackeray's great novel Vanity Fair, adapted by John Bethune, was produced and directed by Andrew Allen, with an original musical score composed and conducted by Lucio Agostini. Featured as Becky Sharp, Barbara Kelly. Narrator, Lorne Green. Rawdon Crawley, Bud Knapp. Amelia, Alice Mather. Joss Sedley, Alan King. With Arden Kay, Kathleen Kidd, Marjorie Leet, Jane Mallet, Bernard Braden, John Draney, Frank Petty, Lister Sinclair, Tommy Tweed, and Frank Wade. Sound, Bert Stanley. Technical operation, Bruce Armstrong. Stage 47 is from Toronto. Elwood Glover speaking. This is the Trans-Canada Network of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.